polygamist sect is back in the news. Authorities in Texas are fighting to seize a compound in Texas belonging to the group led by Warren Jeffs. You may remember Jeffs was suspected of taking dozens of underage brides, but he was convicted last year of sexually assaulting 2 young women.
What was it like to live with 27 mothers?
This is strictly my point of view. I have 149 siblings, and I can't claim to know any of their stories. So this is strictly from my point of view. But to me, it was basically heaven, in a sense. I was the 42nd child out of 150, and I had 7 brothers my age and 2 sisters. And so I just had best friends that lived with me. We lived together. We basically just stay overnights all the time. Just a party all the time for us. We had our 15-passenger van, and they were with me all the time. As it's happening and as you're there, it really is the best thing in the world. So, I don't know, I personally loved it. Whenever people ask me why we would live such a way, I just think, why wouldn't you? It was the best thing in the world to me.
A big thing that they tell me is they believe that prophets are fallible, which I think we would agree with that they make mistakes. But where we would differ is that, at least in my personal feelings, we believe that the prophet is fallible, but that the Lord will never allow him to lead the church astray or from his destiny as a church, and they don't believe that. They believe that the church is lost, and that they were given priesthood keys at the time of John Taylor, and that they still are carrying on those priesthood keys by practicing polygamy. I forget what they call that. We call it polygamy. They call it the principle. Yeah. Of course, we believe that Wilford Woodruff received revelation to that polygamy is no longer to be practiced at this time, and they don't believe that was a true revelation. But they believe that John Taylor ordained 5 guys in 1890 to carry on polygamy, and this a guy by the name of Lawrence C. Woolley was kind of the one that started the fundamentalist movement, like in the 1930s.
So these right here would be my grandparents, and they're part of the Warren Jeffs thing. So I'd be the only one of my mom's kids to know them.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So one of my other moms, we've lived with for 10, 15 years, and she watched us most of the time, my mom's other kids. And they all just kind of, my mom is raising some of the other mom's kids right now that, maybe their moms are struggling with them, or she raised her sister, who was part of the Warren Jeffs stuff and was kicked out when she was a young girl. And so...
Did she live in the Warren Jeffs camp specifically, or was
Yeah.
Okay.
And when she was kicked out, she was 15 and just kind of dropped off at Walmart and figured it out. So my mom went and got her and raised her until she got married.
Well, that's what got Warren in trouble, and Winston both. They were, ostensibly they were marrying them off around that 14, 15-year-old range, and I think that's what that got the law involved.
Your dad went to trial at one point?
Yes.
And what was that about?
So in Canada, technically, it was illegal to live plural marriage.
Okay.
Or polygamy by definition, having gone through a ceremony with more than one partner while you were still committed to the other. So even though it wasn't legal. So none of my moms are married legally. So a lot of people pushed for criminal charges against my dad. Not any of my moms, but against my dad particularly. My dad was charged with it, but he wasn't sentenced to any prison time. It was just house arrest for like 6 months and then a probationary period. But it was actually nice because then it was just finally over because it was 2 decades and millions of dollars in a trial that was going nowhere.
Blackmore remains defiant, slamming the trial as a government attack on his faith.
I don't know if he was one of the apostles or whatnot. Anyway, he had some seniority in their religion with Warren Jeffs, and then Warren and him had a conflict, or when Warren was thrown in prison or whatever. And so I from understand that he separated from Warren, what they call the Warrenites, and went on his own up there in Canada.
People usually tend to, first thing that comes into their mind is, ew, what kind of guy would do that? Like, what a lowlife. And I just think you guys have no idea. That's such a big responsibility, and it's not all about what you'd imagine it to be about, especially at that point. Who wants to financially support 27 families? And so here I am. And then there's no order or anything, it's just kind of all the kids piled in. So I think there's 130-ish in there, late 120s or something. But yeah, this is just my dad and all of his kids that were there.
Well, I'll just say this, they're great neighbors. They will literally take off from their pursuits and help you if you're in need. Very, very good that way.
It's really sweet. There's so much love, you can feel it there. Feels like that little house is just bursting at the seams.